So I sent you this text message after Inbound when I was going home. I was like, what happened?
I'm Margaret Kelsey.
And I'm Devin Bramhill.
And this is Don't Say Content.
And shout out to our producers at Share Your Genius. They're great at creating shows with strategic outcomes in mind. They've been with us since the podcast was just an idea, and they helped us bring it to life from strategy all the way to execution. And we absolutely love partnering with them.
So if you, dear listeners, are thinking of launching a podcast, which you definitely should, by the way, we recommend having a conversation with our favorite people over at Share Your Genius. Now let's get into it.
I always said this. I'm like, my cold, dead marketing heart.
Tell me you've been a marketer for too long without telling me you've been a marketer for too long.
Exactly.
You refer to your cold, dead marketing heart.
I've been in this bubble a little bit since leaving Animals where I've had great clients. You know, the community of marketers and startups have really supported me. You know, my agency network has been really awesome.
The state of marketing 2023.
Mind you, for...
No eating on the podcast, Devin.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. It's not the old days anymore.
It's not the old days. People were specifically actually during our like pre-prep launch stuff, all of those videos of you eating. I had gotten more people reaching out to me being horrified about the fact that there was like videos of you chomping. Like it was like one of those shticks that actually catches on and people were like talking about the shtick. Do you know what I mean?
But you said they were all upset about it?
Most people were like, I hope she's not going to actually be eating on the podcast. That misophonia thing, that there's some people where like the sound of chewing is like actually atrocious to them. Yeah. It like induces rage.
Maybe we should have told them that those were meetings we recorded, not the show.
I like to ruffle some
I'm like, because you can suck it on those. Here, fine. She's not going to snack.
She's got a nice microphone. She's not snacking. I just called her out on it.
Yeah. I forgot that we'd already officially started.
That was just an actual rant.
You know, I will say though, and I told you this while we were there, that was my real takeaway, was that my personal network of people I've actually invested in and not become fake friends with, but actually helped out, talked to, etc., they're there for me. And they have helped us so much, more so than the big brands have. Looking back at Inbound, I'm like, oh, it didn't do what I thought it was going to do, but my network did like 10x what I did. It's timely because that's what Ashley and I talked about, because it's what we believe is that community building is that self-sustaining, self-perpetuating tool in your, like for brands, it's in your marketing mix, right? And I experienced it firsthand last week. Okay, so I got a general admission ticket and you were VIP. So you got to go places I didn't get to go.
Okay, I got to go one place that you didn't get to go, the VIP lounge, which was good. It was fine. I didn't use a lot of the amenities. I didn't do the wine tasting. They had hair and makeup there that I didn't end up doing. I mostly did it to make sure that I could find a seat for some calls. And even that, it was like kind of crowded some of the times where I ended up not really using it. You were able to go out to the food trucks and get a free lunch, which I did appreciate. I don't know if I would do it again. I think I could just pay for my lunch, you know?
Yeah.
And go to Starbucks and get a decent coffee.
So, wow, you got food and hair and makeup. It's funny that like people who weren't speakers got hair and makeup.
I know. I should have swapped tags with you and let you go in, but you looked fly all of the days, but specifically the day of your talk. And I stage mommed you so hard.
You did. I saw them after. I was like, oh my God.
I got different angles.
Room was full. I was nervous because it's like 1,000 people or something capacity. Man, that room was full. We were there for an extra hour after. And there was a woman sitting in the front row who I noticed up on stage. And she looked like a celebrity. Like she was just very stylish in this French sort of way and so poised. And when
we were... I'm just kidding.
But like, we know this. So a new stylish, poised woman in the front row. And Ashley and I are talking to the folks after, answering questions. And I see her and she stays in the front row and she's in the corner of my eye. And it's a while. It's like at least a half hour or whatever. And then she comes up to us and she's like, hey, it's Gwen. Gwen from Cinch, who we just talked about
Yeah.
on the marketing terms one. You know, when you make that connection, because her, like, she interacts with Ashley and I a lot. We love
Yeah.
her. I love her. It was so, so cool. So we chatted with her for a while, and that was really fun. When you see people in the audience that you talk with a lot, meaningfully, you know, like
Yeah.
I was genuinely excited and happy to see her, and that was really cool. So
That's amazing. Going back to that, like, community bit, we saw that at the launch party. I felt bad early in my career to not have that, not realizing that it just takes a decade plus of having a career, especially for a lot of that time to be in the same town or city in order to actually build that up.
sure. And it goes in stages. You know, that's really how I launched my career in Boston. I put a lot of effort into it in a short period of time. First, it was attending
Mhm.
many events, including Boston Content, which then resulted in being invited to join the board, where I met a bunch of people and they're now my friends for life. Then resulted in me taking over. I'm now meeting more and more people that way. And then through my own event, right? And so you can, and you saw that with the events you did with Appcues. Like you can do a shot in the arm pretty quickly, especially in a town like Boston that's really small and kind of insular. New York, it's been incredibly difficult. Granted, I really was about to start in late 2019. That was a great place to incubate a community and then go elsewhere and grow it. And I think it's been easier to grow on top of it
Yeah.
over time. But to your point about time, I mean, there were people at that event I invited who I've known since the beginning of my career. They've just followed me. Mark O'Toole, literally the first person to ever say yes to me. And he didn't even know what I was asking him. I was like, well, you do this thing called the Master Slam. Here's what it is. He's like, I don't get it, but it sounds awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
He has supported me throughout my entire career. I never even worked for him. I never even made him any money. Like I have done nothing materially to like change his professional life. And I've known him in a professional capacity. It's things like that. And just hearing, you know, Alan Tellio, I introduced him to my friend Aristia, who was freelancer looking for work. He needed a freelancer. He's like, she's awesome. She's the
Yeah.
best. My clients are happy, right? You and I got a ton of that.
Yeah.
Our partners even casted, I think Lindsay said that she met two potential, like real potential customers there. And it wasn't a big room. That's the thing. We probably had what, 50 people there?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was around 50.
For that much activity and such a small with a small group of people, and to see how much impact that we have had and they have had on us.
And I think that's where the growth at all cost mindset, or like grow, grow, grow. If you get the right people together, it's like the one connection. It's like, do you need to hire on even a team, or do you just need one person that's going to change the course of your team and program? I feel like it's a theme throughout a lot of things in my life right now, where it's like, you don't need more, you just need right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, so you and I barely saw each
Barely
other.
interacted.
Even at the event, we decided we were a married couple, or we
Yeah.
were a couple getting married at
On
the
our wedding
event.
day, divide and conquer,
Mhm.
have
And that's
conversations
kind
with
of
the
how the
people who came.
event. So I sent you this text message after inbound when I was going home. I was like, what happened and who did you talk to? So, what themes did you notice? You know, the sort of behind closed doors view.
The broader themes, I went to probably about 4 or 5 of the talks. I kind of floated around. I had an interesting conversation with a way early startup that's kind of finding product market fit at the moment. We like kind of keep coming back to this idea of how marketing is so broken, right? And even while they were attending, it's a martech solution, and they're attending this conference both to think about their own marketing, but also to think about their core target audience. And I was talking to the COO actually, and did our common trope of like the words that we use, like that terms episode, right? And how just we've totally convoluted the whole thing to the point where it's so hard to understand what anyone's ever talking about, or if we're even speaking the same language. And this like COO, who's like not really in marketing except for the fact that she works for a marketing technology startup, like she was like about to hug me. She felt so seen and heard. It was like such a great moment. She's like, yes, it's all bullshit. And I'm like, I know all of these words are just so, so silly. I do think that there's still that proliferation, even at inbound, of that idea of like, and now AI, is like in there messing with it all.
Nearbound.
Yeah.
Somebody said Nearbound to me. I think it was Ashley, and I was like, "Wait, what?" She wasn't using it seriously
Yeah.
because she's a serious marketer.
Yeah. We're gonna turn this into a bonus episode from the terms
Yeah,
episode.
seriously. And I said, "What's Nearbound?" Like,
No.
why? Why does this need to be a thing? Just, like, stop naming things.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. So we had some more marketing terms being perpetuated and hated
Yep.
by fellow people. That's great.
What else
What
did
else on
I
the
come
business
across?
side? Like, because I did get a vibe of, like, "I'm fine. Everything's fine," from different companies.
So I talked to another company more established, had a booth there that was talking about how they went through a recent reduction in force. They had gotten rid of a bunch of like full-time agencies. I say full-time agencies, like big agency spend, including PR. And they were trying to figure out how to reestablish that budget with solopreneurs and like freelancers. And I think that that's both interesting because it is what I'm advising founders to do right now, especially if they don't know whether or not a program should be part of their core marketing stack or marketing mix. As I just listened to an episode where you said marketing mix like a whole bunch of times. Especially if they're still undecided on whether or not that program should be in their marketing mix, I think it's a great way to resource it. And so it was interesting to see it's a more established company and they're doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah. That's what I did with Cisco. Part of what I did, I helped them hire a bunch of people, and then I brought in agencies for them, agency partners. And what I observed there is the other side of what I experienced at Animals, which is it's really helpful to have someone manage those external relationships with the point of contact there because they don't have the time typically to invest in making those relationships work.
Yeah.
And so I've seen like there was an agency that they were working with that they weren't sure about when I came in and were seriously questioning. I met them and we started working together. I was like, they're great,
Yeah.
actually. I think the talent pool is still limited in terms of actual quality people, but also there's so many of those quality people went to being freelancers or starting small agencies.
Yeah.
And I think that's most of my referrals are going there. I think Power Digital will be the one that I think is really good on the big side.
Yeah.
And because there's a little more client management built in there, but it really is. I found myself with the clients I've worked for, even helping them hire, I'm playing that middle ground because I usually have the relationship on both sides. So I can set it up for success and
Yeah.
then, right. And then they do the rest. So seems similar to you, right? Like you're playing that role of, helping them establish what to do to resource and then make sure those relationships are set up right. I hung out with Michael at Campfire Labs for a day. He and I have known each other virtually forever. And finally, we just got to hang out for a whole day. He gave me some really good advice for something that we're doing that completely unlocked. So
Yeah.
Jasper did this beautiful dinner at Moo in this private dining room. I think there were, I don't know, 18 people there. I was there with Ashley, brought me with her. And so I talked to someone who works in drilling parts manufacturing and learned a lot about marketing for non-sexy industries and how
We don't say
much
sexy anymore.
oh, right, sorry.
Attractive. Is that what we
For
decided on?
less, for businesses that don't have a sheen, don't have the same sheen, okay? But how much money they have
Hmm.
and how much they still don't know about online marketing in general as a broad strokes category. And so it sounded like there's even though they don't understand, they know they need it and they have money actually, which is cool if you've been working with SaaS companies recently because they kind of don't. Although I have to say, you and I were talking to someone about this, but I like austerity times a little bit because it's
Oh
more
yeah.
challenging
Yeah.
and it gets my creative brain fired up.
Yeah. It's like rub these two nickels together and see what you can come up with. I love that.
Yeah. Because I think that's where you come up with the more interesting partnerships where you can find a way to share value in a rich way that actually isn't like one of those fake partnerships where nobody's really happy. It's like you can really kind of design and people are more open to it.
Well, that reminds me, that's another conversation I had with DZ from Arrows. I had talked to him a couple months ago. They were coming to Inbound thinking about what do they do at Inbound. And the thing I have been like telling everyone, so sorry, conference organizers, is like, you don't need the booth. Like, please, God, don't do the booth, especially if you're a small startup that doesn't have a bunch of cash to burn. You don't need to be a sponsor. You don't need to do the booth. Think about something else creative. He actually wasn't able to come to our launch party because they were having a competing event. They didn't even rent the space, but in that Westin, they did a takeover of the bar. They made sure that they had to get it approved by the Westin and by Inbound, but they didn't even have space rental. They just bought everyone who was in that space drinks for like 2 or 3 hours. And it was like $5K, I think, for the entire bill. And they literally were going up to people. There was like coasters all around being like, steal this beer. And they just bought everyone's drinks. And they knew that it was going to be a lot of their target audience because it's all marketers checking in for that conference on the first night in the hotel that's hosting everyone from the conference. And I was like, God, it's just, again, so good. Like, where is my audience and how do I make sure that I'm in front of them? Right.
That's
And
really
did it
cool.
for just like almost no money, which I thought was really, really smart.
And it's not just the money spent at the event itself. He saved them money by doing something that didn't take a lot of effort to
Yeah.
plan,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
makes him really efficient and smart,
Yeah.
right? It's like if budget is a problem, this is not the time to do these big activations like they do at South by Southwest. It's like going back to your whole thing about killing your darlings. Ruthless prioritization is like, how do I just get to the exact thing that I
Yeah.
need to? And it's like, buy drinks.
Yeah. Buy drinks. That's kind of how I planned our launch party too.
We're like, "Are you feeling this too? We think you need a cocktail," because we definitely do. Like,
I was chatting with him and another woman on his team, and they were talking about how they're considering every activation event, yada, yada, that they're doing as part of our, like, their own value system, right? Like, they were using their company values as prioritization of what they should do at events like that. And it fit perfectly into their values and strategy. And I was just like, it was one of those moments where I was just like, chef's kissing all over the place because I was like, this is so perfect. Like, this is the way you should be thinking about it.
yeah, because one thing that a theme that isn't new, but that comes up every conference is, do we even need to be here? And
And on Thursday, I said no.
yeah, I'm curious to see where the conference industry goes because it's been surprising to me how little it's changed post-COVID, aside from more people trying to do more virtual stuff and nobody caring. So there was a great number of people that just go to conferences and just hang out in the lobby. They don't buy a ticket because if you're trying to make deals,
Yeah.
you're not there to be educated. And so for a conference like Inbound, where it's big, broad, small business focus, at least in the past, those talk are for practitioners. Basically, the conference serves as a place that brings a lot of people that you would have to travel to otherwise together.
Yeah.
And so don't need to go into the conference. The exhibiting is not useful for everyone. I will say I'm sure there are many use cases where brands find value in doing that. I can't make a broad swath comment on that. I will say Wistia's activation was really cool. As always, they do really awesome stuff. So what Wistia did was they set up this whole activation with these TVs and stuff, and he recorded talking too loud clips there. They're generating content at the same time they've made this interactive thing.
Yeah.
So that I thought was cool. But ultimately, the table thing for me has always been a question mark in terms of its value. Like, I think conferences could be better in general in how they incorporate sponsors in a more meaningful way. But that's for another day.
Yeah. That content thing, I did a similar thing when I was at Appcues. We went to OpenView's conference and we sponsored it, but only to get access to the green room backstage because we recorded. I got a camera crew out in San Francisco, and we recorded Voice of the Product, which was like our video series. And we just grabbed speakers when they were coming off the stage, super high on adrenaline, to sit in to say yes because they like would say yes to anything at that point because they're just adrenaline is pumping. They don't know like what's up from down. So we were just like, come sit here. And then we recorded a bunch of episodes with speakers that we would have never been able, based on our brand at that time, to get access to or to get in the same place. And so I feel like that's the thing too, of like, if you can think about creative ways to just go one more step at the conference of like, what's one more thing I could do? I know it goes against my like ruthless prioritization thing, but it's really about like squeezing out every single benefit from the thing that you're already going to go do.
So this is my first time speaking inbound, but I know a lot of inbound speakers from the past, and I talked to a bunch of people about it, and I felt like there was something lacking in the speaker community there,
Yeah.
where they do this like 1 hour thing in like the main exhibit area, and there's the speaker room, but there's no, like, fine, you've got the celebrities, right?
And I did go see Reese Witherspoon.
Oh,
I went to her final talk. It was incredible.
yeah, I bet it was. So there were a couple of things that I felt were missing. One was community among the speakers, even at the event. I thought there was going to be a little bit more of some glue between us. Like
Yeah.
when I used to produce the TED Talks in Somerville, the speakers were like best friends by the end. Like we got together, granted, that is much smaller. So I'm not trying to compare one to one, but it felt like an opportunity for the conference model to evolve to be more modern. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, obviously, but I was like, oh, all the connections I made and friendships I formed came from my existing network being in the same place and introducing me. None of it came from the inbound experience. And that shocked me,
Yeah.
actually. I've spoken at smaller conferences where there's more connection. You've got like, I've gotten work from it even, and they were much, much smaller. So I feel like for the really big ones, there's a huge benefit to bringing a bunch of people together. But I think to make it more worthwhile long term, it'd be interesting to explore how you can create smaller experiences among like sort of sub communities there.
Yeah, it
But
could be like everyone on the same kind of track. All the speakers on the same track are getting together.
all the
Or
listeners on the
yeah,
same track
yeah,
before, during, and after. And I remember talking to Michael Barber about this. We were on the train going to meet Jay for breakfast. And I said, I understand from a business standpoint why there's no incentive to do that.
yeah,
It's an investment that would take time to prove out. And I don't even know what the business value is because all I notice is a hole right now. I think it stood out to me because,
yeah,
especially considering my experience with inbound in the early days when they were really community driven, when they were doing smaller events where, Dharmesh, I remember we were in an Irish bar on the second floor and he gave a speech to a room of like, I don't know, no more than 30 people
yeah,
drinking beers,
yeah. Well, I think too, it's probably glaring to you because your talk was about community as well. So you're like literally rehearsing talking about community while you're at the conference on Friday. So it was like the whole time you're thinking about community because you're thinking about your talk.
Wow. I've gotten a ton of value from a very small community. And so I'm like, the benefit is that it is speaking for a smaller community.
Well, we
And
could get into paying your speakers at some point.
okay, y'all, that's a wrap. Thank you, as always, for listening.
We'll be back next week. And just remember, you're doing great. You're doing great.
30% of you are doing great. The rest, you got to get your shit together. Come on.
You know which side you're on this week.
You know.
You know. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye. I like that. And it's very meta if we actually include that in the episode.
Please, God, no.